Sup, y'all, and welcome to Press on Sports. I'm Jack Vita. Today is June 23rd, 2019. So much to get to today. First of all, I was out of town last week. I was down in Florida. That's why I have not gotten a chance to comment on the NBA Finals. So we're going to do a little bit of that today. Also, we're going to talk some baseball. We're going to have to talk a little bit about the NBA draft, what's going on with this big Anthony Davis trade between the Lakers and the Pelicans, what it all means. And in terms of baseball, you've got some interesting stuff going on in the National League. Cubs are sliding, Phillies are sliding, Braves are on fire, the Reds are playing some great baseball. So it's going to be a lot of fun to unpack all of that. Also, Toy Story 4 just came out this weekend. Saw it over the weekend. Was very good. Very much enjoyed it. So I might be doing an episode on that later this week or next week. We'll see. Gonna have to navigate through some stuff. And now I'd like to welcome in my guest for today. Guys, we got a big name guest. This is a guy who was an Ivy League star basketball player. I think maybe the first D1. No, actually, never mind. We've had some D1 athletes on here, but lit up the Ivy League for a few years, was one of the top players in the state of Illinois in high school, and now he is retired. How's retirement treating you, Connor?
First of all, quite the introduction, Jack. I appreciate that. Retirement is great. Don't think I've been on a basketball court for maybe over a year. So living up retired life.
Yeah, but by the way, I forgot to get the full name in there. This is Connor Boehm from Dartmouth Basketball. Go Big Green. There we go.
Go Big Green.
How's morale?
Morale is pretty good. I would like, and we can get into this later. I would like for the Cubs to be playing better. Thankfully, the Brewers and the Cardinals are losing right along with them. But everything else is going good. Heading into summer, work is good. Boston's going well, so morale's pretty good. How about yourself?
Things are good. Just enjoyed a nice vacation. Slowly improving on my recovery. Doing some more exercise stuff. Been doing some 10-mile bike rides lately. Good awesome. Exercise. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the summer weather helps it out a little bit.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, I really wanted to get you on to talk about these NBA finals and some of the other stuff that's going on in the National Basketball Association right now, with you being a retired D1 athlete.
Yep.
So let's go back. I know it was almost 2 weeks ago now that the finals ended. Actually, it was only a week. It feels longer.
Yeah, I guess it's only been a week.
What is your biggest takeaway from these finals?
Honestly, it was shock. I couldn't believe that the Toronto Raptors won. You go back the last 4 or 5 years, you could sort of say at the beginning of the season, I know exactly who's going to be in the finals and the Warriors are going to win. It kind of felt like that. No matter what happens, the Warriors are going to be there, barring catastrophic injury, which ultimately happened. But
yeah.
it was almost shocking to just sit there and think, okay, the Toronto Raptors won the NBA Finals. A little bit reminiscent, I think, of the 2004 Pistons, where
that's what I was thinking.
3 back-to-back, or a 3-peat from the Lakers. They got Gary Payton and Karl Malone, and you're thinking before the season, there's no way these guys are losing the finals. And then some team really out of nowhere comes in and claims the title and kind of reshapes, the direction of the league for years to come. So I don't know, it sort of feels like that, where the Warriors dynasty seemingly kind of coming apart. You got a lot of big trades happening, and impending free agency is going to really shift the balance of the league. But it was refreshing, I guess, to see. Refreshing and shocking that the Toronto Raptors came in and won the finals.
Very shocking. I want to go back to that comparison you made with the 2004 Pistons. I think it was 2-3 weeks ago, I had a guy named Parker Gatewood on the show, who's actually a former American Ninja Warrior competitor. And we had a fun time previewing the series. And that's what we were saying, is if there's any chance, they have to be like the 2004 Pistons. Now, they have a true superstar, which I don't think that team had. Rasheed Wallace was your top guy, and he might be a Hall of Famer. He had a great career, but we're looking at Kawhi as one of the top 3 players in the league, potentially. We said they're going to have to shut them down defensively. Now, injuries did come into play, and they were a big factor, but I don't think you can take that. We'll get to that in a second. In terms of there should be an asterisk next to the Raptors as NBA champions. I firmly believe that. There are 2 other situations that this is comparable to, and that was the Heat losing to the Mavericks in 2011.
Yep.
In the sense of, it seems like every 10 years we have one of these, whoa, what just happened moments in the finals where a team that isn't quite as stacked or isn't as talented ends up winning because they play better as a team and they just are better for 4 days.
Yeah.
And then the other one is when Kawhi Spurs ended the Heat's potential three-peat. So now he's done that twice, which is really, really special.
Yeah, no, and it is a little bit different because Kawhi Leonard is a guy who's, you can make the argument is the best player in the league, or what at least was last year and throughout the playoffs. But what's really interesting is coming out of that, now the Raptors are champions, but going into next season, there is no clear team. There is no clear, a few teams, I guess, that you can point to and say these guys are kind of the favorites coming into next year. So I think with the injuries that are happening, with Kawhi, with all the free agency and with the Raptors now winning, it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how everything shakes out. Now, we just had a draft in the big Anthony Davis trade, but there's a ton of free agents out there, and it will be really interesting to see where everything stands when the season starts next year.
Yeah, and that's a great thing, in my opinion, because the league that I fell in love with as a kid, it was always open. Even when the Lakers were three-peating, they were vulnerable, and it didn't seem like Golden State was ever really that vulnerable up until these finals. And I think that's a good thing to have it wide open. I know a lot of people coming into this season, coming into these playoffs, had lost a lot of excitement and interest in the league because it had felt so predictable, myself included. Did you feel that way at all?
A little bit. It was one of the, I think I alluded to before, where before the season, you can, everyone knows it's going to be the Warriors in the finals and they're probably going to win. And I think if you look at the betting odds before the season, it was like 2-1. It was like insane odds before anyone had played a game that the Warriors are going to go in there and win. So I think it is good for basketball. I'm sure with free agency and, there's a couple of guys that if another big guy goes to the Lakers, maybe the Lakers become the new Warriors. But I do think it's good to have a little bit of change and see the league a little bit more open than it was previously.
Yeah, and I'm not into the makeup of having 3 or 4 superstars on one team. And one thing that was very refreshing about the Raptors is they had a true superstar, and then they had a sidekick, and then they had a bunch of good role players, and that is the league that you and I grew up watching. That's all you needed to win.
Yeah, I think so, but it did seem that ever since that Heat Big Three came together, that's sort of the formula to win a championship now.
Yeah.
Raptors certainly being an anomaly, but it was barring sort of 2 catastrophic injuries on the Warriors' part.
Yes.
But it seems, you see the Lakers kind of doing it, and it seems like these superstars and these GMs think we don't have a shot unless we can get, 2 to 3 players that are Hall of Fame type talents. And that's just sort of the formula that's in the league right now, and that it's kind of a race to grab 2 or 3 kind of Hall of Fame players, and whoever does it is in the best position. And
that's something that I personally have not enjoyed. So to see what felt like a throwback to the mid 2000s, or even you could look at like 2010 with Kobe, and he had Pau Gasol, and then he had a bunch of role players and Bynum and Odom and Derek Fisher.
Ariza, yeah.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think it's good, but it's also a superstar-driven league, and the LeBron James and the Steph Currys and the Kevin Durant's are the people that are kind of the face of the league, and the reason that everyone is so interesting of the NBA is arguably the most popular league in the United States and the world right now. It's because you have these superstars that are playing together and they're winning championships and they're winning multiple championships and they're shooting threes and all of this stuff. So I think it's good for parity, good for the league to be open like this, but it also, part of the reason the NBA has been so successful is because you have guys like LeBron and Wade teaming up and Curry and Durant and so forth.
So let me ask you this. Should there be an asterisk next to the name 2019 NBA champion Toronto Raptors?
No, I don't think there should be. Injuries are part of the game. Every team has to battle them to a certain extent, and they're open for any. I mean, it's not like any team has a chance for injury. They happen every year. They happen every playoffs. The Warriors have been the beneficiary of some. Yeah. This year. It didn't go their way. But there shouldn't be an asterisk next to their name. The Raptors played better. They won fair and square. But at the end of the day, barring those catastrophic in a world that, never happened, in a world where Kevin Durant never, strained his calf, in a world where Clay never tore his ACL, the Warriors are winning that series. There's no way that a Toronto Raptors team is beating the Warriors team with Durant, Curry, and Clay all healthy. But at the end of the day, the Raptors took advantage of the team that was on the court and they won. So there shouldn't be an asterisk.
Yeah, the big thing that I saw is when you don't have Durant and Clay on the court, now the Raptors can double team Steph Curry. They don't have the same kind of spacing, and I feel like that, again, I'm banging that drum of liking to see just one or two guys on a team as opposed to having three of them. I feel like that's how it should go in terms of if they can double team Kawhi and they can try to take Kawhi out of the game, the other team should be able to do the same thing. So I don't necessarily know where I'm going with that, but that was one big observation that I made.
Yeah. I mean, the Warriors' strength was not their depth, and in a way, the Raptors' strength was their depth. I mean, you have a guy, Kyle Lowry, who's an all-star, but then you have Fred VanVleet, who's coming off the bench and playing just as well and sometimes better. So Raptors use depth to their advantage. And the way the Warriors team was constructed, they knew that depth and injuries, because of their depth, that injuries were a greater risk to them than they were to any other teams. Yeah. And they're willing to take that risk to have those superstars on their teams, but that risk kind of played out with those big-time injuries. So while you may be able to double, and you actually saw in a few games where they did try to focus in on Kawhi and double team Kawhi, and that's when Danny Green and Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam went off. It's because they're deep. But if you double Clay, you can't give the ball to Quinn Cook or Looney or whoever these guys are who just can't create their own shots. And that's just the way the team was constructed. And because of those injuries and the lack of depth, it played right into the Raptors' hands. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's interesting that we saw it first with the Heat, and now we've had this was the third year with Durant with the Warriors, but this is their fifth straight year in the finals. Eventually, someone's going to get hurt when you have a team concentrated on just a few guys, and you're playing deep into June every single year. So it's kind of interesting that we didn't see many injuries down the stretch. I mean, I know some of those guys have gotten hurt in the middle of the season, but not when it matters most. And a lot of times it's who is going to be healthy at the end of the year. And it was just bound to happen, and you run that risk. And every team in the league is willing to run that risk, though.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I'm not a doctor, but if you have the same group of 3, 4, 5 guys playing deep into June for 5 straight years, probably increases the risk that they're going to get hurt, and that's too bad. But that's just the way the game is constructed. That we have a 9-month season, and if you go into the finals, you're playing close to 100 plus games a year. So probably bound to bound to happen or greatly increase the chance of happen when you got such a core group of guys that are going that deep into the playoffs for so long.
I'm going to share a quick take on Durant, and then maybe we can transition to some other stuff unless you want to throw some thoughts in there. Are you ready for this?
Go for it.
All right. So this is going to sound like it's easy for me to say because hindsight is 2020 and everything, but I did not like the narrative that Durant had going into, I believe it was Game 5. That was Game 5, right, that he played?
Game 4 or Game 5, yeah, I forget.
Yeah. Well, it ended in 6, right?
Yeah. So it must.
Yeah.
It might have been Game 4.
It was Game 5.
All right, Game 5 it is.
All right. So the thing I did not like to hear was all these people who are like, well, he's got nothing to lose. And, and we saw, like, there's a lot of risk when you play on a calf that is not at 100% because you put stress on other muscles and other parts of your body that you can become susceptible to some form of injury. But I'll take a step even further from that. I don't know where you stand on this, but when people are like, yeah, you're down 3-1, your team's got nothing to lose at this point, I don't necessarily agree with that. And I know you've played sports your whole life, so I want to hear your thoughts on this. But in my opinion, I feel like you've got everything to lose because you're like, I don't think anyone at that point is accepting that, oh, yeah, we're probably going to lose. So let's just go out there and see what we can do. I think at that point, your whole season, you have everything to lose. I don't like that narrative all that much.
I think I agree with you. I think, when he was out games 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, there was a lot of armchair doctors out there saying, oh, blah, blah, blah. This is the NBA Finals. This is the reason that you play. You're saving it for free agency next year, yada, yada. But no one really, and I think this even extended to the Warriors medical staff, no one really realized that whatever he did to his calf greatly increases the chances of doing something worse. So I think it was totally unfair for everyone to go out and question his toughness and question his motives, et cetera, when, you have no idea what's going on. And I'm not sure the medical staff or even he knew the extent of what was going on. So I agree he has everything to lose. And if you look, now that he has a ruptured Achilles, his career just took a drastic turn and is probably going to be completely changed, which is sad. I mean, he's going to miss a year, the whole next year in his prime. This is, I think he can extend or sign on for an option this year and then is an unrestricted free agent for the next. But his whole career just changed. So yeah, he did have a lot to lose, and I think it was unfair, and it was really sad to see him go out and try, and he was killing it for the first 10 minutes or whatever he was on the court, and then for him to go down, it was awful to see, and everyone kind of quickly pulled back and being like, oh man, now we feel bad for Durant before, even yesterday we were ripping on him and questioning his toughness, etc. So yeah, I agree with you. It was totally unfair.
I also feel like, and look, the Warriors medical staff, they know far more than we do, so I'm not going to get too tough on them here, but I do feel like the Warriors didn't necessarily put him in the best spot because they had to have known this was a serious injury that was going to last a while, and they could have released that information to the press and said, yeah, we think he might be out for the season. Like, he might not play again. But strategically, they didn't want to give that away to the Trailblazers or the Rockets or the Raptors because they wanted those teams to have to prep and think, okay, Durant's going to be out there. This is how we're going to run our defense. We got to prepare for that. But the downside of that is it did create this whole narrative about his toughness, and then it put pressure on him to go out there, and it was just really unfortunate to see how it all played out.
Yeah, I agree, and obviously we don't know exactly what was going on, but it seemed like there was, rumblings and there was some tension in the locker room and from the coaching staff, et cetera, with wanting him to get back out there and play. And obviously the medical staff didn't know didn't have a great handle, because if they do, they would never let him. If they knew exactly what was going on, they would have never let him back on the court with that great of a risk to re-injure or severely re-injure your Achilles. So I just think the whole thing was really sad to watch it play out, and a lot of people, I think, came away with a newfound or greater sense of respect for everything that Kevin kind of risked and put on the line there.
One thing that I really respected about the Warriors was when they lost, there wasn't any they weren't doing what the Saints were doing, where they were like, oh, we were screwed because of the refs, or we were screwed because we got hurt. We would have beaten them otherwise. They sucked it up, and I thought they showed some great sportsmanship right afterwards, shaking their hands and giving them hugs. And some of the guys looked really happy for Kawhi, so I enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah, I loved all the players on the Warriors and how they handled it, from Steph to Clay to Draymond to Kevin Durant. After each and every game, then when they were beat, they didn't make excuses. They were, listen, we got beat, we got to come back and figure out a way to play better next game. And when they eventually lost the finals, I think they handled it. They handled it great. They took the loss in stride and realized that they need to rework a lot of things before coming back next year. So from Steph to Clay to Kevin to Draymond, I thought they all handled it awesome.
And going back to the asterisk thing, one more thing just came to mind, and that's that we did not put an asterisk next to the Warriors when they won the Western Conference Finals against the Spurs, when Kawhi got cheap shotted, taken out
by Zaza.
Yeah, and they were down 20 at that point, so who knows how that could have played out.
And then Game 6, when Chris Paul was down with it was Game 7 where Chris Paul was out with a hamstring.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just part of the game. Every team has this, those risks when they suit up. Every team, has injuries. Sometimes it benefits you more than others, but that's part of the game. You can't make excuses, and you got to play through it. So yeah, I agree. No asterisk, no nothing. The Raptors won. Absolutely.
Well, I feel like we wrapped up the series nicely there.
Yeah, and now on to the off season. It seems like right after the finals ended, Anthony Davis is getting traded. The draft just happened, and there's a lot of looming big free agency moves going out there.
Well, let's go chronologically. So I was in my apartment in Florida. I mean, it's not my apartment. We were getting, we're renting it out for a week or a few days, and I get a notification on my phone. I'm like, oh my gosh, this trade that we've been talking about for at least a year, it finally happened. What did you think of this package that the Lakers had to give up?
It seems like an awful lot in that it seems not comparable, but it's, the only other package where you're mortgaging so much of your future in terms of first round draft capital brought me back a little bit to that Nets trade. Now, a 26-year-old, Anthony Davis is light years ahead of the 37 and 38-year-old Paul Pierce and Kevin Durant that you're getting. But it was pretty insane to me for a guy who's going to be a free agent within the year, and all signs pointed to him signing with the Lakers in free agency, to give up that much in first round draft picks and a couple young promising guys. I can't really think of another trade that gave so much to another team. That being said,
Herschel Walker.
Yeah, Herschel Walker's a good one in the NFL. But, that being said, LeBron is 34, 35. Your window is within the next 2 years. You have to do whatever you can to go out and make that window work. And that's what they did. So I think it sort of worked out with both sides. I wasn't rooting for Anthony Davis to go to the Lakers, but it will be very interesting to see. I don't think LeBron has ever played with a big guy of that caliber. So I don't know if it's going to end up, clogging up a bunch of the lane for LeBron, or it's just going to be a ton of value to Anthony Davis, but it will be interesting.
I was having questions over this past year, as a lot of people were, about LeBron's future in terms of, do guys really want to play with him anymore? Because when you play with LeBron right now, I'm not talking about when he was with the Heat or when he was with the Cavs for the first time, but the last couple of years, the narrative is you're a scrub because LeBron has no help.
Yeah.
Your talents get undervalued. You don't get to do the same kind of stuff with the ball because LeBron's so ball dominant. So I was starting to wonder, and with LeBron getting up there in years and all the drama that comes with the coaching, picking a coach, and some of the young guys, their development gets stunted. I just had some questions about that. Now that they have Anthony Davis, this team is probably a top 6 team in the West next year.
Yeah, probably higher than that.
Well, we'll safely say top 6. Yep. So this is going to be a really good team. I don't know. We'll see what they do from here. They might be with the Warriors going down, losing Clay and Durant. Who knows what's going to happen with those guys if they'll stick around. But even if they stick around, Clay might not be playing until he might play next spring, but Durant's going to have to sit a year. So that opens things up in the West. There are some other good teams out West that are on the rise. So the West is still tough, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think they're going to be competitive. They're going to compete for a title, but as you said, that's a short window. They gave up a lot of their future, and they must think that they're going to win a title with, or at least play in the finals with, however they're going to assemble this team, because they gave up a lot. And like you said, you compared it to that Nets trade, those first-round picks in 2024 and 2025, LeBron is probably going to be long gone by then. This team's going to be rebuilding again, and the Pelicans are going to get potentially a couple of top 5 picks then. Who knows? Who knows what will happen? But there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with that trade.
Yeah, I mean, how old is LeBron? 34. So you have 3, maybe 4 year, max window to go out and execute and compete with, a generational talent. So that's a move you have to make. That being said, I think with the current roster as constructed, they're going to need to add another piece before, they're the definitive favorites in the league. I think, you need some backcourt help. A lot of talk of Kyrie or Kemba or whoever else is out there, but I'm not sure that the current roster as constructed is going to get it done. No doubt they're going to be more competitive than they were last year, but I think they need to go out and they need to make another deal.
Yeah, they're going to also need to get some shooters to put on the perimeter with this team.
To space the court, yeah. The lane is getting very clogged very quickly.
And it's weird because I don't know what they were doing with getting Rondo and Lance Stevenson.
And JaVale McGee, yeah, that seemed like a very odd strategy. And I think even maybe was Michael Beasley in the mix there too?
I think he may have been.
They were just adding some really pieces that didn't seem to mesh very well. Some veteran guys who had success recently, but are not going to make your team go from 8th in the West to being NBA champs. So that and I don't know what their contracts look like, but that seemingly was an interesting strategy to say the least. But I think they need some shooters. They need they need some backcourt help, and they're certainly not done for the summer.
I don't buy this new rumor that maybe the Lakers want him, that they want to get D'Angelo Russell. Why? I don't know why he would want to go back to them after how they treated him and shipped him away.
I actually heard that too, and that made no sense to me. Maybe, I heard there are some rumblings between him and Magic Johnson, and now that Magic is gone, that he may be a little bit more open to come back, but that made no sense to me. And with a guy like D'Angelo Russell, who's like a ball dominant volume type shooter, whose usage rates need to be high for him to be successful, at least historically. I'm not sure how well that's going to fit in a group that already has LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I think you need a guy. Kemba seems like a good guy who would be able to distribute and knock down some shots, and that doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands the whole time. But they need somebody that can go out there and knock down shots and get the ball to Anthony Davis and LeBron James.
I kind of would like to see D'Lo stay with the Nets. It just feels really right. I know they want to go out and get Kyrie, but the guy's blossomed so much there, and it's been fun to watch.
Yeah, he's been good. But, at the end of the day, I'm not sure he's a guy that takes your team to the next level.
Yeah.
he's been awesome and really reinvented himself in Brooklyn. But again, he's a guy that needs the ball a lot, and he's been out of college now for what? This is his fourth year in the league. I don't know how close he is to his ceiling, but it seems like that this past year, he's been out for 4 years, and there's not a ton of room to grow from here. And I don't know if using him as a focal point on your roster, I'm not sure how ultimately successful you can be. And I think that's why we're going to see Brooklyn grab one of the elite guards. Everyone's talking Kyrie, but they're going to go out and grab somebody.
Yeah. It will be interesting to watch. We won't speculate too much. I'm at a point where I'm starting to get a little tired of the speculation stuff where it's like, oh, this guy got a new house in LA, so he's going there, like as if no one ever wants to live in Los Angeles.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. I think there was a picture the other day of Kawhi buying boxes at like a Home Depot in Toronto, and like Twitter went crazy because where is Kawhi planning on moving, etc. I think it's actually you don't put too much weight in it, but that stuff is always really funny to kind of follow, and people being like, well, his cousin just took a private jet to Utah, what can that mean? Blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that. It's always pretty amusing.
Or when you get the, this guy just followed, let's say Jimmy Butler just followed Boogie Cousins on Twitter.
Yeah.
So now he's going to the Warriors. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. That's a whole, first 30 minutes on First Take the next day is about Jimmy Butler unfollowing Ben Simmons on Instagram or something like that. Yeah. It's always great.
Oh, man. Let's talk about this Pelicans, the move from the Pelicans perspective. I thought they got a really nice haul here.
Who was it again? It was Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, and like three first-round picks.
And Josh Hart.
I think it was
two picks that are 24 and 25, 2024, 2025. Which is
and then the number 4 pick, right?
Yeah, and I think they also got a pick swap too.
Oh yeah! Wow, that's a pretty insane haul.
Yeah,
but like I was saying before, some of these guys, Brandon Ingram in particular, seems to me like he's been out of the league for now a while, and we really haven't seen him take that next step. If you look back historically, and any of the guys in the league right now that we consider really good or elite, they've already taken that step by the time, they're 4 years out of the league. So Brandon Ingram is one of these guys who's, he's been pretty successful in the league. And, a lot of people are lauding the potential that he has, and he's got a long wingspan and all the tools, et cetera. Some of these guys that the Lakers were holding on to, it's like you need to see them take the next step really quickly, or else, you got to start putting a cap on the potential talk. So Brandon Ingram will be interesting. We'll see if new scenery makes sense.
This will be his fourth year, by the way, which is, I think, that's a big year because I think contracts come up around after their fourth or fifth year. So who knows? I mean, look at D'Angelo was able to spread his wings once he left the Lakers. So maybe some guys.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Julius Randle too. He's not an all-star type player, but he had a really good year this year. I believe he just opted out. However, he didn't want to be a part of the Lakers reunion tour in New Orleans.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting to see. Lonzo Ball is a guy that just on the surface seems like it will be awesome to watch him play with. And with his passing and his ability to throw alley-oops and such, that seems to be like an awesome fit for him.
Yeah. Hopefully leave LeVar in LA too.
Oh yeah. We'll see. I don't know. One of his kids just, I forget which one. I think LaMelo just signed on to play in Australia, so maybe he'll be down there for the season.
Yeah, keep him there.
Yeah.
Don't need any more sound bites. But yeah, I think this is going to be a team that when they're on Thursday nights on TNT, I'm going to always want to watch them just because it's fun to watch these young kids grow. Lonzo, I believe, is only 20 or 21 right now, and Ingram's a year older than him, so they're still really, really young, younger than us. And Zion is going to be, we'll talk about draft in a second, but man, that guy is going to be a stud.
Yeah,
this team's going to be fun to watch.
He's awesome. He's like must-watch television. It was funny to see how much coverage he got last year as a college player at Duke compared to like DeAndre Ayton, who's the number 1 overall pick.
Or Ben Simmons.
I think I saw DeAndre Ayton.
Who did get a lot of coverage, but
Sure.
Even then, like not Zion.
But, I don't remember ever seeing a guy that was as like must-watch appointment television as Zion. So he's going to be awesome to watch, and like a once in a generation type kind of guy.
So we'll talk a little. Let's talk about this draft. Who did you, aside from Zion, who jumped out at you from watching college basketball, reading up on some of the scouting reports and stuff like that? Who are some of these early picks that you really, really like coming into the league?
Well, I don't think this one is necessarily original, as he went second in the draft, but watching Ja Morant in the NCAA tournament, and I know they got bounced a little bit early by Florida State, but even in that game, like, he is unbelievable. He was so good. His ability to shoot, to pass, just to kind of do it all for that team and do it at just an unbelievable level. And he's a guy at Murray State I didn't really watch during the regular season. So seeing him come in, and he had the triple-double in the first game, and playing against Florida State, I was so impressed with how good he was. And hopefully he doesn't get lost in Memphis, as I think it's probably a little bit easy to do. But he was so fun to watch.
What do you mean get lost in Memphis?
Well, how many times did you see Memphis play a game last year?
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah. In terms of media coverage.
Yeah. No, I think there's a few teams around the league, and Memphis is among them, that, and I think Phoenix was another one where a guy like DeAndre Ayton was the number 1 overall pick, goes to Phoenix, and like they play 2 national televised games over the course of a year.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to give you one that I to tell you the truth, I did not study up on the draft as much as I normally do this year. However, there's one top 5 combo outside of the Ja and Zion picks that I'm excited about seeing, and I think I like Darius Garland to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Interesting.
The reason why is someone even made this comp during the draft. I think this could be a really cool backcourt to watch with Garland and Colin Sexton. Could be similar to De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield, or Lillard and McCollum in Portland. A couple of guys who could shoot it really well, and I think that could be a fun backcourt to watch over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, Garland's not a guy that I really knew prior to the draft. Obviously, he was hurt and didn't play much at Vanderbilt, so I really know nothing about him. It seems like a guy whose stock skyrocketed once all the combines and the workouts started. But it's hard to say anything about Darius Garland. I just didn't see him play against anyone.
Well, he was a very high prospect coming into Vandy. He was a high recruit, so he's been on the mock drafts for a long, long time. And I'm a big Bryce Drew fan because I covered him for a year at Valpo, so I was following him. Sadly, he will no longer be coaching at Vandy, but he actually flew out there and was there on draft night with him. So I'm excited about him. I think that could be a nice combo, a couple of nice building blocks for that organization as they move post-LeBron.
Yeah, they certainly need help. So hopefully Garland turns out to be a star.
Anyone else in terms of these lottery picks that you watched a good amount of or you like a lot coming in?
I like Kobe White. Obviously, I'm a Bulls fan, but it seems like he's a good guard. You're kind of moving past the Chris Dunn era. I saw Kobe play a handful of times over the course of the year, but he's a bigger guy, super fast, awesome in transition, controls the tempo. I think, with his size, he's got an ability to kind of add to this core of Laurie, Wendell, Zach LaVine, in him and maybe make the Bulls semi-exciting to watch this year. But I was happy to see them make that pick, which I think a lot of people in Chicago, the consensus was, wow, Garpax may have gotten one right.
I know a lot of people were, well, at least I heard a couple people. They're like, the last time they took a guy this high out of UNC, it worked out very well.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Yeah, a little bit of a stretch to be starting the MJ comparison so early, but hopefully
some fun nostalgia there.
Yeah, let's just hope that he's an upgrade from Chris Dunn.
So I got another guy I'll comment on in terms of I'm not necessarily know where to project him, but I watched him play a lot in college, and that's Romeo Langford out of Indiana.
I actually didn't get the chance to watch a ton of Romeo Langford, but it seems like he had some injuries. He's got good size, can do a little bit of everything. He's got a good outside shot. And I'm rooting for the Celtics. I think the Celtics kind of insane.
I like the Celtics.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of insane the transition that they're going to go over this year with losing Horford and Kyrie. But their young core when a couple of those guys were out, I think 2 years ago in the playoffs was so good. So it's
last year actually, but yeah.
The year before when Kyrie and Gordon Hayward were out, so you got to see the guys like Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum kind of excel. Mm-hmm. I think that team was a little bit more fun to watch. So getting back to that and adding some nice pieces with him and Carson Edwards, who I think is going to go under the radar and be pretty awesome for the Celtics. I think that's hopefully they take a step in the right direction in sort of a semi-rebuild.
They got they got Carson Edwards? What pick was that?
It was in the second round.
Oh, because I didn't know he got traded over there because I saw the Sixers take him. Okay, that is awesome to get the two big guys out of Indiana basketball, Purdue and IU. That's really cool.
Yeah, and of course your head coach is a former college coach in the state of Indiana, so probably knows those scouting areas pretty well. But I think Carson Edwards was awesome. He kind of stole the NCAA tournament a bit, and it's too bad to see them go down in the Elite Eight, and that was kind of a heartbreaking game.
So are you expecting Carson Edwards to be a guy who will come off the bench and give you quick points? Do you think that's what his career will be, or do you think he's got a higher ceiling than that?
I think he can start. I think he's undersized, but he's explosive and he's athletic and he can get shots off against the bigger guys. I think he's a guy that can get in there and be a starting 1 or 2 guard and score a lot of points.
Yeah, I think he's a mystery, but I do think that his floor is that he could be that exciting sixth man who gives you a lot of points off the bench. And if that's, I think that's a pretty high floor for a guy that you take in the second round. Yeah,
no, agreed.
So I'll give you my breakdown of Romeo Langford real quick. He reminded me of another Big Ten guy that we watched 8-9 years ago, and that's Evan Turner, who was an amazing player at Ohio State. I think a lot of people forget how great a college player he was in terms of a long body guard, do it all, play some really good defense, rebound the ball very well, long arms. I do think Romeo, he has the potential to have a better offensive game than Evan Turner. Evan Turner's made his money on that, around that 10-footer where he backs down the guy and he fades away. But I really like Romeo Langford. I think he's going to develop a better outside shot, and I think he could end up being a star player. I do think that had he gone back for another year, he could have really grown his game, and he would be a top 5 pick next year.
Yeah, tough to say. I think he was hampered by a few injuries over the course of the year, but he's a prototypical wing player who can get to the rim, who can shoot a little bit. Had success scoring at the college level, so I'm hopeful. I like his game.
Do you see the Evan Turner similarities?
A little bit. I think he's probably a little bit more athletic.
Yeah.
And hopefully has a higher ceiling. and can, is a more efficient scorer or can get to the rim a little bit better. But yeah, both big kind of wing guys.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he does have a high ceiling, a high upside, and he's going to be fun to watch. I think that's a good situation for him in Boston.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see him play next year.
Anyone else notable from this draft? Either any late round guys or anyone that you were surprised fell out of the lottery or fell late or didn't get drafted?
No, I think there was a lot of shooting. That Cam Johnson pick, 11th to Minnesota, was one that everyone kind of was scratching their heads about, because this guy, he's one of the lone seniors that got drafted, but is a guy with great size that can shoot the ball, and is that's sort of the way the NBA is going right now.
Yeah, and I was not too surprised that Taco Fall didn't get picked, but hopefully he sticks around on a not practice squad, but G League, and works his way into the league.
I actually think the Celtics picked him up.
Oh, really?
I'm like pretty sure.
Like as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, I think he signed some sort of contract with the Celtics, but
I'll look it up.
I think I just did. I think he did.
Okay.
So yeah, watching him play against Duke, he looked awesome. Like, yeah, Duke couldn't score over him during that game. He was like a huge factor in that game. So, there haven't been a lot of guys that have been successful in the NBA at his height, but he looked really impressive when I watched him play against Duke.
Yeah. I like watching him. He kind of reminded me of some sort of like a zoo animal. It's just the way that he kind of walks around, very mild-mannered, and he's just kind of chilling on the low block, and but you don't want to get in his way because he's a big guy.
Yeah, he affected a ton of shots, was coordinated down there, had some moves. I was surprised he didn't get drafted. I think it's probably good by the Celtics to take a chance on him.
Yeah, and Bol went in the second round.
Yeah, I saw that. He dropped. I think a lot of people thought, at least at the beginning of the season, he'd be a high draft pick, and he dropped. I think got traded to the Nuggets.
Yeah, you're right.
The 44th pick. But I don't know. It's just he's like, I think 7'1" or 7'2". It's tough because not a lot of people have been successful like at those tall, slender type players. Yeah. It's tough, and especially with the way that the league is going, with a little bit less emphasis on size and more emphasis on outside shooting. But I like both of those guys, and we'll see in the coming year.
Yeah, I'd really like to see a guy that big find success in today's NBA. I think that'd be cool.
I agree. Not a lot of big guys that you can point to. There's Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns and others, but there's not like a lot of centers with typical low post games that you can point to anymore.
Yeah, and especially guys who are bigger than 7'1", 7'2". Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm pulling for my former classmate Rick Smits' son, who he just transferred into Butler out of Valpo. I'm hoping he gets his shot next year. He's a good player.
Is he super tall as well?
7'2", I believe.
Yeah, well, that gives you a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good guy too, by the way.
Nice.
All right, let's talk. Do you have any other NBA thoughts that I didn't ask you about or anything?
No, I don't think so. We can move on.
Okay. Let's go baseball. So there's a lot going on right now, and I'm someone that follows the Major League Baseball season very closely on a day-to-day basis. Maybe not everyone does, but I know people who listen to the podcast, a lot of them do. So over the last week, there are a couple teams. We'll talk primarily National League stuff today, unless you have some other stuff you want to bring up. We're seeing some teams go up, some teams go down. The Cubs right now are struggling, and they're about to start Game 4 of this 4-game series with the Mets. They've already lost 2 out of the first 3 games, and they're facing DeGrom today. Things aren't looking too great for the Cubs. And then they got Well, I guess let's talk some Cubs. What do you think is? How are you feeling about the Cubs right now?
Optimistic, but a little bit hesitant. They have not been playing well recently. And yesterday it was Quintana, but I don't even really think it's been a pitching issue. I think it's been a hitting issue. Like, these guys got to score more runs with their lineup. We need more production out of everyone. And even it seems even when they are scoring, it's not the guys, it's not the Rizzos or the Baez's or the Bryants. It's, you're getting big games from Bodie or Carantini or whoever. I think it's a hitting issue. Like, with runners in scoring position, they need to be more productive. And
that's been a problem for a few years now.
Yeah, they need, and they're getting a lot of solo homers and a lot of homers, but they need to put the ball in play with runners in scoring position, and they need to have, start having games where you're scoring 6, 7, 8 runs. Because I really don't think as they certainly have had their stretches of starting pitching issues and bullpen issues, but I don't think that's the ultimate problem here.
I think all three of those are problematic at the moment. I calculated a metric or a stat yesterday between Quintana, Lester, and Darvish. They, over their last 22 combined starts, they have a combined ERA of 5.75.
Yeah, no, that's not great. But, Lester...
And now Hendricks is hitting the DL, too.
Lester's been good this year. I don't think you certainly can't blame this stretch on Lester. Darvish has actually looked good in his last few starts as well. Obviously, Quintana had his issues last game, but I don't think the pitching has been the issue. They've had a great year from Hamels, a great year from Hendricks. Lester's pitching well, a little bit more shaky as of late, but he's had a good year. Darvish is finding his stride, and hopefully Quintana can get there. But again, I think it goes back to, you got to get people on base, and when they're on base, you got to put the ball in play. And if I'm pointing to one issue, and that being said, they're still leading the NL Central, so it's not like there's some catastrophic issue with their lineup, and hopefully they figure it out. But they're still in the lead for the division. They've got an awesome roster. Pitching, I think, is doing well, and then you got Kimbrel coming up any day now. So I like their position. I like where they're at right now. I hope they figure out the hitting soon.
Yeah, I think hitting is a problem. I'm highlighting all the problems here that I see. I think that starting pitching is, concern. I think this is an average pitching staff. I think it averages itself out, maybe slightly above average, has the potential to be really good. Right now hasn't been the best. You lose Hendricks for a couple weeks. We'll see how long he's on the DL. Adbert Alzolay is coming in. He looks great, so that's a good sign there. But then you look at the bullpen, you keep seeing these guys you've never heard of. Brad Brock keeps getting thrown out there and keeps getting shelled. And then you look at the lineup, it's the same story that we've had the last few years. I really would have liked to see them add a couple of contact bats to throw in there, or to keep someone like Tommy La Stella, who might start in the All-Star game, believe it or not. He's having a great year.
Love La Stella.
Yeah, and Descalso's below the Mendoza line, who they got to replace him. I don't necessarily know why they traded him.
It's tough. I mean, preface this all with, the Cubs are in first place in the division. Yeah. They've got an awesome roster, feel confident. They've got the best closer statistically, like, ever coming up almost any day now. So they're an awesome team, awesome roster, in an awesome position. That being said, some of their guys that are supposed to be, all-star MVP type players like Bryant, Baez, Rizzo, Contreras, etc., you need to knock the ball and play with runners in scoring position. And I don't think they've been doing that. Almore's been playing better. He's awesome. He's electric in center field, awesome to watch. But I don't know. You're looking for one of these guys to sort of erupt and have, an MVP type season, and we're not seeing that so far.
Yeah, and then also going off this, which I think another problem that they have coincides with this one. So the first part that I'm going to mention before I talk about the lineup is this team is 6th in errors in all of baseball, and they're in the lower third of the bottom 10 in the whole major leagues in fielding percentage, this has been a team that when it won the World Series was a historically great defensive team. They had a great defensive outfield.
Yeah,
and
that's surprising to me.
Yeah, and I think two things. Now you could look at, I do think one of the contributing factors to why they've struggled is because some of the way they've built the team in terms of they have a lot of guys who are long ball or bust and they go up and down. But I do think the other thing is I think defense would be tighter. I think it'd be better. And I think some of these other guys like Almora and maybe Addison Russell, they're going to play at their best when they play every day. When they develop consistency and get the chance to fail and succeed without any sort of pressure, as opposed to when you're playing every, 2 out of every 4 days, you try to get your chances, but then your bat cools off when you're hot. We've seen a lot of this, and I would really like to see the Cubs just try to determine who are your best 8 guys and put them out there almost every day. Because that's how I think they're in. Also settle a consistent batting order. I think they need to develop that consistency in order to hit in these big spots.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a little bit of a chicken and egg problem, where these guys may need a little bit of consistency to play well, but they not necessarily playing well enough to earn that consistency. Because there's guys like, do you pick Bodie or Schwarber or Almora or Cargo, or they've got some really good guys that may not be in the top 9, and depending on who's playing well, there's no clear cut, I think, top 9 in my opinion. So it is tough because not playing consistently can be difficult. But it seems to me like you have your 5 kind of core guys in Baez, Bryant, Contreras, Rizzo. But aside from that, there's a lot of shuffling and back and forth that can be done on any given day.
Yeah, and I think the defensive problems occur when you put a guy like Bryant out in right field where he's not very comfortable, and then he gets injured, and now he gets injured and his back cools off as a result. And I just see a lot of this stuff, and I just start to scratch my head. I'm just like, what is going on? When is this going to stop?
Yeah, no, it's tough. And those points that you brought up about their fielding percentage are actually quite surprising to me. I mean, if you go up and down their roster, Hayward, Almora, Baez, Rizzo, they have some awesome fielders in their lineup. And I think, it's a little bit of that shuffling around where you have Schwarber or Bryant in the outfield, or, you bring
Hayward in center.
Yeah, it's that shuffling that may cause some of that. But, if you look up and down the roster, they do have some great defensive players.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch. Let's talk about a couple other of these teams that are going to be. There are really a few teams that are going up and down right now that I think are really interesting to look at. And the Cubs meet 2 of the teams that are on the up right now this coming week. So they've got 4 games with the Atlanta Braves, who I don't know how closely you've been watching, but they have been an awesome team over the last month.
Yeah, they're leading the NL East.
Yeah. And now they have a 5.5 game lead over the Phillies right now.
Yeah, the Phillies are kind of going down. They've got bullpen issues. Harper is batting like 230 or something. The Braves are good. But really, outside of the Dodgers in the NL, I'm picking the Cubs over any of these teams. The Dodgers are
interesting.
The Dodgers are sort of a different animal. I think they've kind of been pulling away. I mean, they are unreal right now. But outside of the Dodgers in the NL, I'm picking the Cubs over any of those teams.
Okay. All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I just think it's important to note what's been going on with the Braves, and that is they have a nice young pitching staff in Soroka and Max Fried. Now, Fultonevich has struggled a little bit after he had an excellent year last year. I believe he was top 8 in the National League in ERA. He was fantastic last year, but they just pummeled the Phillies last weekend. Phillies are falling off. And then the other one that is going to be interesting for the Cubs this week is they play the Cincinnati Reds, who are
good. Yeah.
quietly playing some great baseball right now. And looks like Scooter Gennett is going to be back sometime in the next couple weeks. And I think if they get Scooter Gennett back, that's a huge, huge piece in their lineup that I think you get him back. Last year he hit like 310, had almost 30 homers. He's a great contact hitter, and I think he's going to space out their lineup nicely, and it's going to allow for some other guys to start hitting a little better, like Puig and Suarez, some of those guys that we know are really good hitters. This has always been a good hitting team. The bats are starting to come alive. Their pitching has been very good, and their run differential is plus 50, which is one of the best in all of baseball.
Yeah, the NL Central is weird, where the top of the league is, may not be the elite of the MLB, but all 5 teams are if their 5 is better than any other 5 in baseball.
Yeah, no doubt. Have you followed the Reds at all?
I can't say outside of when they're playing the Cubs. Not really. I mean, I see them creeping up 4.5 games behind, but I'm not tuning into Reds games on a regular basis.
Well, this is the first year since maybe 2014 that I did not have MLB extra innings, and they were one of my favorite teams to watch over the last few years just because they'd always score so many runs. They give up a lot of runs in a hitter's park. Now they didn't have the best pitching staff. Now they have a good pitching staff. They're a fun team. I'm a big fan of Joey Votto and Scooter Gennett, so I think that's going to be a big series quietly. I don't know if it's at Wrigley or if it's at the Great American Ballpark, but that's going to be a big series.
The Reds are good. Yeah, they're not absolutely shouldn't be taken lightly, and it's too bad that you don't have one of those teams in the NL Central. You look at the NL East, you got the Marlins, or the West, you got the Giants. You don't have one of those teams in the Central where you can take a 3-game series and be like, oh, good, we can take a breather here and squeak out a series sweep.
They're just the Giants are past their window. They're going to start their rebuild soon when Bochy retires.
Yeah, they're sellers.
Yeah, Bumgarner is probably going to get traded this year, which will be interesting.
Yeah, looks like he's going to get traded. A couple pieces in their bullpen may be up for sale. It's interesting. The Giants have been contenders for the past decade or so, and they're finally sellers. But in terms of the NL, I think it's the Dodgers and everyone else right now. But hopefully we see a Dodgers Cubs NLCS.
Yeah, we'll see. We will see what happens. The Phillies are going down right now. Some people are starting to wonder about Gabe Kapler, which was an interesting hire at the time. I know some people were a little confused by it at the time with him not having any managerial experience at any level. It seems like the hot seat is warming up out there in Philly.
Yeah, and this is another team that, I haven't necessarily paid close attention to, but it looks like a team you sign Bryce Harper, you get what's his name? The other guy on their team.
Real Muto or Segura? Oh, Hoskins, yeah, Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, Hoskins back off for a great year, and you're looking like the favorites in the NL East. They got to figure something out at the break.
It sounds like the Nationals. I heard a rumor the other day that they might float Scherzer out there in some trade rumors, which I actually think is not a bad move for them.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know how long he's got left on his contract?
That's a good question. Let's look it up.
Yeah, because that could be a pretty massive haul for them if they put him on the block. He's one of the best pitchers of the last decade.
Yeah, I think he is the best.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think he right now is the best pitcher in the National League. He's under contract through 2021. So that means
2 more years.
2 years after this. So you get him for 2.5 years. You shed some salary because it looks like he's going to make $34 million over the next couple of years. It's a lot of money. And
yeah, I mean, he's quietly one of the best pitchers of all time.
Yeah. He's amazing.
Insane. Yeah. He's insane, and whoever gets him, it's going to be quite the haul.
The Yankees are going to need to they need to try to get a Bumgarner or a Scherzer or a true ace type of guy that they can throw in the playoffs that can help them win these playoff games. I really think the Yankees are going to need that in order to beat Houston.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing pretty well without one of those guys and without like a lot of their big bats and a lot of they've been I don't know how they've been doing so well, but they have. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll make a big move, a big Yankees-esque move at the deadline. But they're pretty awesome right now.
I like the Rays too. I think the Rays they're a little under the radar, but I think they're legit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It looks like the wild card might be two AL East teams.
Yeah, it could be. We'll see. It could come down to if Cleveland can get it together, if Texas or Oakland wants to put a nice run together. I feel like the A's are going to have another one of these big runs where they win 15 out of 19 games or something.
Yeah, it seems to happen every year.
Yeah. Every year that they end up making the playoffs.
Yeah, no, that's right.
They were rebuilding there for a little while, but yeah, it's been a fun season, fun pennant race in both leagues, and I'm loving it right now.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for a Cubs win today.
Okay, I'll ask you one more question about baseball. Any thoughts on the Brewers or Cardinals right now?
Cardinals, not worried about. They're hanging around, only a game back, but at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to be there. Brewers, I am worried about. They've got some awesome players. I mean, Yelich is probably going to be an MVP again. They've got a great bullpen. They've got that, what's his face? The lefty out of the bullpen.
Hader.
Yeah, who's unhittable. That's a tough team to face down the stretch. They haven't been playing well as of late, and the Cubs have had a chance to kind of extend a lead in the division, and they haven't done so. So it's sort of been neck and neck the whole year, and it will be interesting to go down. It can go either way.
Yeah, I really cannot figure out the Cardinals because if they miss the playoffs this year, that will be 4 straight years of them missing the playoffs, and there are going to be some changes made as a result of that, I would think, because the Cardinals are held to such a high standard. They've been a first-class organization for such a long time.
Well, they tell people they're a first-class organization. I'm not sure they have been, but they like to tell people.
They've done a great job for a long time. They're historic. It's a little unfortunate that the Cubs and Cardinals haven't really been going back and forth as the top 2 teams in the NL Central the last few years. There was that year in 2015 where they played in the playoffs, but it's such a classic, historic Midwest rivalry. It would be cool if they had some games that really meant something down the stretch where...
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be there. And there's been some Sunday night baseball games and some big series, both at Busch Stadium and at Wrigley. So it's been a little bit more meaningful than maybe the past few years. But at the end of the day, I'm not too worried about the Cardinals. I think that the Brewers are the team to keep your eye on.
Yeah, they just keep sweeping each other back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whoever's at home.
Yeah, I was thinking about that Cubs-Cardinals rivalry. I just started reading a book about Tony La Russa's managing called 3 Nights in August. Have you ever heard of this book?
No, I haven't.
Well, this author, Buzz Bissinger, who wrote Friday Night Lights, he follows La Russa around for this series with the Cubs in 2003, which, historic Cubs team that almost got there. We won't go down too far on memory lane because that was a painful year for the Cubs, but it chronicles this big series between the 2 teams in 2003 in August, and it brought me back, and I was like, man, it'd be cool to see that if they had some similar battles down the stretch here this year.
Yeah, no, we'll see. I think, very well could happen, but I think, the Brewers, the Milwaukee-Chicago rivalry is going to be the more important one this year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Yelich as a potential 2-time MVP. Right now, I see it as a 3-man National League MVP race. You know who that is?
Yelich, and then who?
Bellinger.
Oh yeah, he's filthy.
Yeah, and Josh Bell.
Yeah, I forgot about Bellinger. He's pretty incredible. But Yelich, I just looked up his stats. He's hitting 345 this year with 29 homers and 62 RBIs. Like, that's also insane. It'll be fun. Hopefully one of the guys on the Cubs roster can make a run at it.
I picked Yelich in fantasy this year. I think I had like the 9th pick, and I was shocked that he was still there. And I got him, and then some of the guys were like, do you really think he's going to repeat what he did last year? I'm like, yeah. I do. I think this guy is amazing.
Yeah, he's on a Hall of Fame pace.
Yeah. He's looking like the National League version of Trout. He steals bases, too.
Yeah, he's pretty incredible. I like Christian Yelich.
Yeah, he's a likable guy.
Yeah.
One last thing as we talk about Yelich, and then I'll let you go in a little bit. And that's, like as you say, you like Yelich. It's interesting. It seems like the most popular guys in this sport are the guys who are not into the showmanship of having to bat flip, having to stare down a pitcher, or whatever you want to put in there. I look at maybe the 3 most popular guys in this league: Mike Trout, Aaron Judge, Christian Yelich. And they're just like the golden boys who, you know, are very, they've got great sportsmanship, and I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put Bryce Harper in the top 3 if you're talking about popular.
He's a brand. He's polarizing, though. I mean, I wouldn't say he's universally loved like the other 3 guys are.
Yeah, I think so. But in terms of name recognition and even popularity, I think he's definitely top 3.
I guess what I was looking at is guys who are not polarizing, who everyone seems to like. No one has any beef with.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, everyone seems to like Trout, Yelich, Judge, etc. But there's definitely a market for guys like Harper who are a little bit more flashy, maybe.
No doubt.
I think baseball can certainly use more of those guys.
Well, that is a conversation for another day. We'd be on here for another half hour on that alone. But thank you so much for joining me today, Connor. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jack.
We're gonna have to do this again sometime. Are you coming to the suburbs anytime this summer?
I may be coming over the 4th, but haven't booked final plans yet.
Well, let me know if you do. It'd be fun to get out on the golf course with some other guys. It'd be fun, or get some lunch or something.
Agreed.
Is there anything you want to promote while you're here? Do you have social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, anything?
Nothing I want to promote outside of the Jack Vita podcast.
Press on Sports.
Yep.
Yeah, send this out to your friends. I'm sure they'll appreciate hearing you on here.
Definitely. Thanks, Jack.
So that does it for my conversation with Connor Boehm. Had a lot of fun talking baseball and basketball with him on the show today. If you like what you heard and you'd like to hear more from this podcast, subscribe to Press on Sports on iTunes. You will never miss an episode. You can also hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @TheJackVita, and I tweet a lot about sports, some movies, and TV thoughts, reality TV, lots of fun stuff there. Love interacting and hearing what you guys think of the podcast. So thank you all for listening. I may have another episode coming out this week or next week. We'll see. It could be a busy week. I would love to talk some Toy Story 4. So we'll see if I get a chance. Until then, though, have a great day. Bring in the dancing lobsters.